notification that we are recording in progress. Great. So as I said, assessor information session. This is a session for you, our very valuable assessor community. We do want to have more contact with you, and it's been a tricky time. We haven't been able to see people in person, so online is where it's at. That's also a benefit because we get to do this nationally and with assessors who aren't based in New South Wales, which is where most of the NABERS team is based. So I'm Zoe Baker, if we haven't met before. Quick acknowledgement of country. I'm on Gadigal land in Sydney, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging in my area and wherever you are dialing in from today. A little bit of housekeeping. We are recording this session, so that's a note. If you don't want to be recorded, you can leave your camera off. If you would like to have your camera on, we do welcome that, but if everyone can stay on mute, that just helps us with noise reduction. We are recording this so that people can watch it later, so that's just useful for us. We are using the chat box function, which you'll be able to access via the little chat function in the Zoom meeting. For the Q&A session, which we'll have at the end of all of the presentations this afternoon. So if you've got burning questions, chuck them in there. We'll come back. We may not be able to address everything, but as you saw in the invitation, we're keen to hear what you guys want to know more about. So if we can't address it in that Q&A session at the end today, we'll put that up our sleeve for future presentations or information or emails to come out to you, especially if it's a larger topic that just warrants a little bit more detail. So that's everything for the housekeeping. We are covering a few topics today. We've got a tips for successful level 2 audits session. This is really high level. It's about how to prepare and be in the best place for that. It's not going into too much detail of individual L2 audit cases, and if we can keep the questions around L2s not on specific audits themselves, that would be really good. That's better to come to us as a direct communication. We will then have a bit of a rules update from the rules team, taking us through some upcoming things that will change. And then we're going to do a really quick headline run through of some things that are happening at the moment, things to watch out for in the coming months. And there's a few different topics that we'll come back to there. Then, as I said, we'll have a bit of a Q&A session where hopefully some of you have put some questions in the chat and you've got some things that you'd like to know from us, or some, especially if that's stuff that you want more detailed deep dive in the future, let us know in the chat, and even if it's not a question we'll answer directly, we can take that back and work on that for another session like this. So without further ado, I'm going to pass across to Rob, who's going to take us through some tips for successful L2s. Rob.
Thank you, Zoe. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. It's great to see lots of familiar names and faces here today. I just wanted to, so I'm Rob Hughes, the ratings manager at NABERS, and I look after our level 2 auditing program. So I just wanted to, I guess, give what I think are some tips that might help or help assessors be aware of how to prepare and to be ready to get through some level 2 audits. I won't touch on too much technical content right now, but so these are hopefully a bit more general or universal tips for us. Next slide, please, Zoe. So I just wanted to recap briefly on some of the objectives on the level 2 auditing program. Obviously, confirming the accuracy and reliability of our ratings, and of course we can only level 2 audit a sample or a minority of ratings. So I guess they're the outcomes of audits are meant to be informative across you know, the other ratings that are unable to be audited all the time. And we also want to progressively support assessor development, so you know, a constructive process to help everyone improve. But also identifying improvements for our own rules and training and processes, areas that we can improve within the systems themselves. But that said, we all like nothing more than an audit that finds nothing. It means that it means a lot less work for everybody, and hopefully that the systems are working as they should. Thanks, Zoe. So one of the best ways to do well at a level 2 audit, of course, is to do the rating well and be well organized from the outset and prior to lodging a rating. Particularly if it's a repeat rating, it helps to, it's important not to assume that nothing has changed, that each rating and each period is different. And even if you think nothing has changed, it's important to confirm that that is the case and document it as such. So you may need to use your site notes to document observations and judgments, things that might not be clear in the documents themselves, but that you pick up in your site visits. That can be an important way for auditors to understand that you've done that check and that they know what you've done. It's important to be thorough with your documentation, and I think it's helpful to prepare as you go. I'll talk about documents a bit more in a sec, but yeah, it's good to have that in place before you lodge the rating. And as always, if you're unsure, contact NABERS in advance to get some guidance and keep that on record, because that can be helpful for you in the process of the audit as well. Thanks, Zoe. Next slide. So yeah, I mentioned documentation a few times as an important area to focus on. Having your documents well organized is a key way to get through the audits smoothly. We have file templates on our website or in NABERS Perform. We've just actually launched some level 2 audit functions within Perform, and they will have file templates and a bit of structure, but of course it is flexible and you can use your own system as long as it's fairly easy to follow and understand. That's the main thing. And on that note, using explanatory notes to summarize what you've done may be helpful, and whatever makes it easier for the auditor to understand. We like everyone to be ready to transfer files when the audit starts. So they should, the document should be prepared and in place at the point of lodging the rating, really. We don't want people to be spending hours and hours and days collecting documents to support the audit. Really, it should be there at the point of rating, and kicking off the audit should hopefully be smooth and easy and not take everyone too long. And on that note as well, providing all of thorough documentation in the first instance is also a very good way to make sure that you start the audit off smoothly and things are you don't get a whole lot of issues raised. Make sure you include as much as you can in that. And yeah, we found that insufficient documents can be one of the biggest causes of issues raised in level 2 audits. Next slide, thanks, Zoe. And I also wanted to point out, it's a rarer issue, but can be significant sometimes. I guess, ongoing responsibilities of assessors for their ratings. Even after you leave your current role or the company that you've conducted the rating for, you remain responsible for the inputs, and essentially as part of your accreditation, you're required to respond to audits. And yeah, so it's important to have that in mind, particularly if you do move elsewhere. You may still be audited after that. Now, although it's the assessor responsibility, the assessor company and the customers obviously have an interest in making sure that ratings are able to be validated and therefore to support that audit. So yeah, sometimes you have that situation where we need to cooperate even after the assessor has left that company. And so I guess there's one thing we've learned is it's highly recommended that assessor companies have a centralized storage of rating documentation as part of their QA, so that can be available, ideally for the assessor to be able to use, but also for the company to assist where they can in that audit. Yeah, because unfortunately, if we can't confirm the rating, it may have to be withdrawn or changed. Next slide, thanks, Zoe. And yeah, I guess it's important to keep in mind, I suppose, that the audits can be an opportunity. We don't audit all of the ratings. It's a small number, but it's exposure to some very experienced and knowledgeable auditors who can often assist you with how to approach different sites, and you can take some lessons from those. But it's also an opportunity to, I guess, inform your practice for other ratings that you're looking at, and learning sort of what documentation helps, and so use that, use it hopefully as a constructive opportunity. Equally, looking at each site and buildings, what you can take learnings from it to understand how documentation could be improved, or the rating itself. Can you learn from this that some better documentation around, say, lease agreements or operational controls, do they help not just you get through the rating and the audit, but in fact to help the building better manage their performance? Next slide. Thanks, Zoe. I think that's it from me. I'll hand over to Andy now. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Rob. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Bushel, and I'm the Standards Manager at NABERS. And I lead a team whose responsibility is to look after the NABERS rules, rulings, and guidance documents that assessors use to conduct NABERS ratings. So for my update, I'm planning to briefly go through what has recently been published, what we're working on, as well as two projects that we'll be seeking your input on. So thanks, Zoe. The first slide here is recently published. First up, we've got the Thermal Energy Systems Rules, which was published late last year. That was basically an update of two existing rulings on thermal metering. We've combined them, updated it, cleaned it up, and turned it into an actual rule document. We've also added additional guidance on topics such as validation of thermal meters. At the moment, we're working on producing some training material on these rules, and we'll be looking to upload that onto the learning management system NABERS Learn in the next month or so. Second thing we've published is a minor update to the energy and water for shopping centre rules. So that was published last month. We had a couple of tiny clarifications, nothing big or technical. The biggest clarification was around shopping centres that are less than 5,000 square metres. They are still eligible for a shopping centre rating, but we acknowledge that the Energy Star that you receive for that shopping centre may not necessarily reflect the premises' actual performance. And the third thing we've recently published or about to publish is the Shared Services and Facilities ruling. I say about to publish because I believe it'll be published early next week. And what that is we've consolidated the content of two separate rulings, the Shared Services ruling, which deals with the portioning of services within a single building, and the Shared Facilities ruling, which is apportioning energy and water of shared facilities, for example, in a precinct. It's been consolidated. We've updated the content and tried to simplify it where we can. And we will be also looking to produce some training material for that as well. Next slide, please, Zoe. In terms of what we're working on, as you can see, there's quite a few items on this list. So going through it, first one, the energy and water for offices major update. So this is a pretty big update. The reason for this is we're preparing for the migration of the office tool from NABERS Rate to the NABERS Perform platform, which is what currently the shopping centre ratings go through. That's looking to happen at the end of this, or towards the end of this calendar year. So as a part of that, we need to make some changes to the rules. But we're also looking to incorporate changes from some recommendations we received on some projects that reviewed the content around rated hours, computer count, and site visits. I'll talk a bit more about that in the next slide, but that's a pretty big update, and to make sure that everyone has enough transition for that, we're planning to publish or to complete this project by the end of this financial year, and hopefully that'll give at least 3 months before NABERS Perform the ratings moved over to NABERS Perform. Alongside that, we're also looking to do a major update to the metering and consumption rules. We've got quite a few items in our feedback and issues register, which is a repository of all feedback and issues that we've received both internally and externally. And so we thought this is a good opportunity to try to fix a lot of those items. And we're looking to publish that at the same time as the Office rules update. The third item on the list there is energy and water for apartment building rules. So that's a major update. The main purpose of that is to align the apartment building rules with the meter and consumption rules. The current published version has content around what to do with metering, meter validation, and treatment of consumption data. We're planning to basically remove it from the apartment building rules and reference the metering and consumption rules. So we're trying to align it with the rest of the rules that we have. And that one is planned for publication in early next financial year. The fourth item there is energy and water for warehouses and cold storage rules. So the rules team is helping support the new sector development team, and we do this through development of the new rules. The current plan is that the new warehouse tool will be launched later this calendar year, so towards the end of this year, and we'll look to get rules out well ahead of that. And the last item there is the 2022 NABERS Assessor Satisfaction Survey. So this is a survey that we release every year to all assessors in order to get feedback on how NABERS has been performing over the last 12 months. The plan is to send it out to all active assessors on the 1st of July, and it'll be open for about a month. And any feedback that we receive from this survey will guide planning for internal improvement projects throughout the year. So when you receive the link to that survey, strongly encourage you to fill it out and to be as open and honest as you can. Next slide, please, Zoe. In terms of what we need your input in, I mentioned 2 projects. So the first one is some input on some other recommendations from the rated hours computer count and site visit consultation. So the background to this is we engaged some external consultants to undertake a pretty wholesale review of these 3 sections. And they've come back to us with a series of recommendations that we could implement to bring it up to currency and to streamline and improve it for assessors. Now, the recommendations they've given us, and these are very high level, there's a lot more detail, are things such as changing the priority levels for how rated hours and computer counts are done. So for example, should OTA be at the top, or should TOSs be at the top? Changes to the tenancy occupancy survey. So the main one around that is, rather than requiring the person who fills it out to be a people manager, we are proposing maybe it should just be someone who is familiar with the space that's been surveyed. Looking at adjustments to the default computer count density. Currently it's 1 computer per 25 square meters. The proposal is to reduce it to 1 to 20 square meters. Looking at adding a new computer count method. So utilization of workstation plans in combination with full-time equivalent numbers to effectively come up with another computer count number. And the last one is looking at remote site visits for every second rating. So somewhat similar to the existing COVID rulings, where we require, where one of the options is to do a virtual site visit. We're saying, well, if it's the second rating, the assessor's doing the second rating for the premises, we may allow them to do a virtual site visit rather than do a physical one. So as I said, these are really high level. We're currently producing a consultation paper with a lot more detail. We're planning to send that out to stakeholders, including all assessors, in the next couple of weeks, about early April. And based on the feedback we receive, we'll enact any changes as part of that that major office update I mentioned in the previous slide. Next slide, please, Zoe. And the second project is effectively looking at the managing impacts of COVID-19 on NABERS rating. So we're transitioning to the living with COVID style of working. Lockdowns are less likely now, border restrictions are becoming more rare, and we've got high vaccination rates. So we're starting to look at how we're going to start phasing out these rulings. So in the next couple of months, we'll be in contact with all assessors, effectively to ask the questions that you can see here on the screen. And based off that, plan for how we're going to start removing or rescinding the rulings. Next slide, please. The last thing I kind of wanted to touch upon was this idea of, the feedback and issues register, which I mentioned earlier. So if you found an issue with any of the documentation that you go through, and it doesn't have to be a big technical issue, it could just be, oh, I found a series of typos, let us know. If you've got an idea for how to improve it, let us know. Send your ideas or your issues through to the email there, the NABERS Inbox. It doesn't just go into the ether and forgotten. It ends up in we call it the FAIR register, feedback and issues register, and it sits there, and we use that as a tool to help us plan future updates. So we definitely consider every item, every piece of feedback that assessor receives about the rules, and hopefully action it. And the next slide, please. I'll hand it back to you, Zoe.
Great, thank you so much, Andy. Next session is basically compressed news headlines on a range of different topics. I'll go through these reasonably fast because it is just supposed to be a watch this space for a lot of this. And obviously, if you have questions about particular parts of it, chuck them in the chat so we can come back to it. So the first thing is around some of the offers that we've got in play. We've had applications coming through for these, so they won't be totally new to you, but an update is that we are extending the deadline for the New South Wales Energy Starters. This is a first-time rating, essentially a grant, a subsidy. It doesn't cover the full cost of the rating, but it is a $3,000 top-up per site for buildings that haven't been rated before. So this is great for the new sectors like residential aged care and retirement living, and any of those customers who have parts of their portfolio that they haven't rated before, or the weird and wonderful buildings that they just haven't gotten around to rating yet. So this is New South Wales specifically because it is New South Wales government money. But it's a nice little incentive to take to customers. We have a cap of 7 buildings per customer for this round. And when we first launched this at the end of last year, we had a cap on assessor companies. So we were sort of saying, don't put in for more than 7 per assessor company. And we have removed that because if you've got more customers who you can bring through the door with this offer, bring them to us. We've got a nice chunk of money to give away, and we really want this to be something that helps get people on the board. We'll be coming out with some more information. Let me just tell you the application process is really simple. T's and C's are on our website, and it is an email to us at NABERS. We just check that everything's in place, and then we email you back, and you, the assessor companies, invoice us. So you pass that saving on to the customer. So deadline is extended till 30 June. We are about to announce that there's a water top up for that. So those two will go tandem. You can apply for one or the other. But if it's a new building and they want to do both, that's a $4,000 per site bonus. And we are also looking at an extra incentive for regional New South Wales. So if there's sites in regional New South Wales that need to be rated or are coming through with this rating, there's an extra top up for those as well. Will come out, that's about to go onto the website now, but I'm cheekily kind of pre-launching it. That we should be getting emails out this week or next week, and everything updated on the website shortly. So it's the same energy starters that's currently on the website. We're adding water, and we'll have that regional top-up detailed in there as well. So that's great for New South Wales. We do have another New South Wales offer, which is the new build. So that's for commitment agreement support. That's a nice fee waiver of the total cost of the lodging, the commitment agreement. So again, it's to incentivize people to use that and be a bit more ambitious. So this is great if you've got new builds or major renovations where they either wouldn't have been looking at doing a commitment agreement, or to incentivize people to go above the average in terms of their targets. So again, that information is all on our pricing and offers page, and link everywhere. Those two offers are New South Wales government money, so they are only available for New South Wales sites, but we do have other things for the rest of the country. The biggest, I guess the the best offer at the moment for the rest of the country is that because residential aged care and retirement living is a new tool, for the first 12 months, we have a 50% off the lodgement fee for that rating. So that's going through until September this year, which is when we launched last year. The good thing with that residential aged care and retirement living sector and the Energy Starters offer is that you can take advantage of both the 50% discount and the New South Wales Fund rating funding. So it's a nice incentive for that sector. We also have commitment agreement fee waivers for the first handful of ratings that come through in the new sectors in which we're offering that commitment agreement. So that's apartment buildings, data centres, shopping centres, and residential aged care and retirement living. Get in touch with us if you're keen to bring customers in with any of those offers. For the 50% off the lodgement fee, no action required, that's applied from our end. All the information is on our pricing page. And just on the pricing, as you guys will all be very familiar, we do a CPI increase to our lodgement fees every year. We're just in the process of calculating that. We will release that in time for the end of financial year when that price increase will take place. And yeah, keep an eye out for the emails about what that's going to be. I know some people are doing quotes at the moment and sort of letting customers know that ratings that will be done in next financial year will have a fee increase, and we'll let you know as soon as we've got that calculated, and that'll go up on our pricing website as well. So that's pricing. Andy's touched on the sector expansion work that we're doing, and just to sort of recap on that, last year we launched residential aged care retirement living tools. Those are in market now, and we are just getting the first ratings coming through, which is really exciting for us. And what we're working on this year and what will be released this year is the warehouse and cold store tool. And as Andy touched on, we're working on the rules on that. We're working on all the kind of pilot calculations, etc. And so we've got some really generous stakeholders in that sector who are bringing us their case studies and their buildings for that development of the tool. In the background, we're looking at what comes up next. And so these are the sectors that we've got funding for expansion into, and this is where that biggest emissions reduction opportunity is at the moment. And as we go forward, developing schools, supermarkets, retail tenants, and working with the private hospitals, we'll also start to plan and look forward to what other sectors are out there. And if you have customers in other sectors who are keen to rate and we don't have a tool and we're not developing a tool yet, let us know, because we want to know what there's market interest for. That is how we're looking at the emissions reduction opportunity, but there's no point us building a tool if the market doesn't want one. And so if you know that there's interest from existing customers or potential customers, please get in touch with us and let us know what you're hearing in the industry, because you guys are our ears on the ground for a lot of that, and sometimes it's a close enough rating that we can develop something that fits. So that's where we're looking at for the sector expansion work, and it's from what I'm hearing on the warehouses and cold stores, it's going really well, and there's some really interesting buildings coming through. Another thing that we're working on in the background, and some of you will have already registered for these workshops, for the material recovery score review. So we've got workshops this month and next month, just reviewing that scoring, what it all looks like. If you are not already involved in these workshops and you would like to get involved, get in touch with us. You can also let us know in the chat, and I'll make sure that we get an invite to those workshops out to you as well. Training, we've got the new recently published aged care and retirement living training modules are now fully online. So if you're keen to upskill, you can get involved in that. And as Andy touched on, kind of coming down the pathway for that will be the thermal energy training information coming out in a few months or so. So that's current training. We are still offering the 50% discount for anyone who identifies as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. That's, you know, we would like to support people coming in and doing training. So yeah, that's still available until the end of this financial year. And the Renewable Energy Indicator, we are in the process of, you know, we did that consultation with the sector towards the end of last year, wrapped up what we heard. We are in the process of basically working out, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of the calculations and rules? What would that look like on a certificate? And that's a process where we are, you know, we still want input from you guys, from the sector. Again, if this is an area that you've got a lot of customers or clients who would be really interested in how this is displayed or interested in what's being counted in this, get in touch, get involved in that project. But it's going to be really exciting, and we will have we'll have more on the REI at our conference in June, and hopefully we'll have some, you know, basically, we will let you know well in advance before anything is launched and in place. This is the process that we're in at the moment, is that sort of working out what it looks like. And we will also let you know the time frame and the sort of transition process for when that comes into place. So there won't be any surprises with it. There'll be plenty of opportunity to still be involved in and hear more about this. Keep an eye out for more information at the conference, and we'll do some specific events, I would imagine, as we're getting ready to kind of launch that, both for assessors and also for customers. It's an opportunity for them to get much more recognition for the different types of renewable energy that they're using. Great, we will get you involved in that materials recovery workshop stuff. NABERS Conference, given it a little plug. If you have not received an invitation to the conference and you have not registered yet, again, let us know in the chat so we can get an invite out for you. It's going to be on Wednesday, the 8th of June. It's the NABERS and CBD conference. We are madly working behind the scenes for what's looking like a really, really interesting conference with some nice and meaty topics for both assessors and customers and industry in general. So if you haven't received an invite, let me know in the chat and I'll get an invitation out to you. It's a free event. It's sort of an all-dayer, but obviously if there's different parts of the agenda that you want to attend more than others, you can go in for that, and that will be recorded as well. So you'll be able to view sessions that you couldn't attend after the date. But register, then you're in the email chain, you'll be sent the updates on the sessions. A quick reminder that kind of goes hand in hand, Andy, with your Fair Board comment. We implemented the NABERS Inbox, and that's that one-stop place to ask questions, get help, whether that's on a rating that's going through or customer information, anything else that's kind of going on with you guys. Having that come to a central inbox and be dealt with by the most readily available NABERS team member, that is a process that we hope is addressing the kind of response times and not having things go into individual team members' mailboxes where they might be on leave, or they might be having a week that's really full of meetings and they just don't have time to get to it. So that coming into a pool to us and us being able to answer that more rapidly, we think it's working well. We think we're getting our response times down. We hope that it's working for you as well. That's just a reminder that is the best way to get in touch with us. It also lets us track how quickly we're getting back to you, so that we know that if there's topics that we need to have more information at hand so that we can get that information to you when you ask, send through an inquiry. We're seeing that in one place now. So we're hoping that that's helping us get back to you quickly. And it definitely helps us see if there's a big influx in specific topics or questions that are coming in. That helps us work out what we need to bring to an event like this or to send out information on. So please use it and let us know how it's going. That is essentially the end. We're going to start a Q&A session. We've got 2 comments but no questions in the chat. I might bring us back. We've got Rob, Nav and Ian and Andy and Alex, who are all online. I guess we don't have any questions in the chat. If there are no burning questions, that's absolutely fine. We can take an early mark and or get on with our Tuesday afternoon. But I guess I'll give everyone a minute to let us know if there's anything. And yes, we'll get the material recovery workshop invite out, and there's a comment just about the file structure for the downloadable file management stuff for L2s. Rob, do you want to comment back on that?
Yeah, sure. So there currently is on our website a template, a zip file of like an empty file structure for officers, essentially based on the document requirements outlined in the rules. So you can download that one currently, and in NABERS Perform, as we extend it out to each sector, that will be built into the auditing platform. But essentially, it follows the structure of the of the documentation requirements in the rules. And yeah, sorry, I don't know off the top of my head if that's downloadable from the Perform platform, but I could get back to you on that, Ray. Thanks, Zoe.
And there is another question there about audits for all rating types. We do audits in all rating types, don't we?
Yeah, essentially the auditing covers I guess one of our main targets is 5% of the all NABERS ratings. So yeah, effectively anything could be audited.
All right.
Zoe, a question just came in. I'm just going to copy that into the chat. I think it might be for Andy or Rob. Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, do you want to?
So NABERS rates the measurement standards selection box under areas tab does not include the PCA 2008 update option. I've noticed a few survey plans citing the standard as opposed to the 1997 one.
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I would say it'd be something we'd definitely update, but because the Office tool is migrating to Perform, we'll pass that on to the team that's building the Perform to make sure that they do update that. And just as a bit of an add-on to it, we have also received requests for other measurement standards. So it's on the feedback and issues register as a to-do thing to investigate in future.
Right, and Paul's just commenting, is the 2008 version a reprint? I do not know the answer to that.
Entirely possible, but we'll definitely double check it.
I think just to answer that, I do think that it is just a reprint from what I've seen, but I could stand corrected.
We'll get confirmation on that so that we're pointing to in the right direction when we come into the form. Right.
Sorry, Zoe. I also had a direct email asking about the thermal energy systems rules interim status. So just so everyone knows, the current thermal energy systems rules has interim status, which means we encourage you to use it, but fully acknowledging that there's a lot of new content in there, and for certain situations it may not necessarily be workable. So please get in touch with us, give us all your feedback. If it's not working, let us know and we'll work with you to do it. And the idea is that when we do the next update, we'll remove the interim status. Everyone should use it because it's a much better product.
Sounds good. All right, no other questions from the floor?
Oh, there's one more question, Zoe, from Steve Hennessy. So I'll read it out. I remain perplexed that a building owner can use offsets for electricity instead of renewable energy when going for carbon neutral. Are there plans to change this? Andy, do you want to take that?
I can give it a shot. The short answer to this, Steve, is I believe that's pretty much the purpose of the REI, the Renewable Energy Indicator. So it's looking at that. I'm not the best person to answer it because, yeah, it's not my project, but I believe potentially it's a topic of future discussion. Is that right, Zoe?
It should be, and we will definitely, as we're getting a bit closer to REI kind of coming into place, we'll do some really comprehensive session, hopefully have all the experts in the room to answer all of these tricky questions, and also the why behind that stuff. Yeah, and Steve will definitely make sure that you are involved in those sessions. All right, no other questions that anyone from the NABERS team have received via other channels? All good. There's nothing else coming through in the chat, so let's give ourselves a 3-minute early mark. Thank you very much to everyone who's attended today, and thanks Andy, Alex, Rob, Nav, Ian from NABERS who've been manning the Q&A and doing presentations for us this morning. Great to see you, even though we are not seeing each other very effectively, and looking forward to seeing everyone at the conference in June, and keep an eye out and keep in touch with us if there's other things that we can answer. Great, have a great week and see you next time.